Had a few days off. I didn't really want to come back to work today, but needs must. It's a big week for Celtic, so suppose we better do one of these videos. I am, of course, kidding. I'm always buzzing to come back to work. I'm always buzzing to talk about Celtic. Massive week for the club. We all know how it's going to end in terms of the fixture. We don't exactly know how it's going to end in terms of the result. We've obviously got Dundee United as well Wednesday night. We're going to have live reaction to both of those games. Goes without saying there'll be huge previews ahead of the big one at Ibrox on Saturday. But we're going to take a little bit of a different start to the week. And obviously the new year is fast approaching. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas, by the way. I should have said that. My tiredness probably gives away the fact that I had a wonderful few days off. New year will soon be approaching. Obviously 2021, hoping for better things there, but also hoping for good things in the transfer window with regards to Celtic. The transfer window will, if it slams shut, what does it open? Can it slam open as well? Swing open? We'll go with swing. It will swing open on Friday morning. Celtic, the initial kind of chat will all be about the game against Rangers, but I think after that game happens, we will hear more about transfers. I think Neil Lennon's been quoted today during his presser as saying that he's not too keen about bringing in new players. Certainly doesn't think he'll be looking for a goalkeeper this January. Not sure quite how I feel about that, but we're going to focus on the other end of the pitch. And while we may not exactly need to bring in a striker at the moment, with Odsonne Edouard and Lee Griffiths showing signs that they're starting to build up a good relationship again there is a player who certainly seems keen on coming to Celtic at some stage in his career. Now, his name is Jordan Larsson. That surname itself will probably tell you that he's a relation of the great King of Kings, Henrik Larsson. He is his son. He's 23 years old, and he's been given an interview in the last few days to Russia Today. Now, he's based in Russia, playing for Spartak Moscow, and he's been given some very interesting comments on his desire to sign for Celtic at some stage and hopefully continue the great Larsson legacy at the club. Now, Larsson told Russia Today, not today, but that's the name of the publication, "For me, Celtic will always have a special place in my heart. Not that I've played there in that sense, but it was the first place where I saw football as a young kid, going with my mother to see games where my father was playing. That's where I have the biggest memories in my head. You'll never walk alone. You have all the scarves before the game and everything. So of course it will always have a special place in my heart. But at the same time, since my father is who he is at the club, I think for me personally, if I would ever have the chance to play there, then I would like to establish myself even more, make my own name before I would play there, if that chance would ever come up. But of course, it's tempting. Not that they are interested in that sense, but if I think about it, to be able to play there would be a dream in that sense." Right, so they clearly don't really practice punctuation in Russia. They don't really have full stops, clearly, because that sentence I read out there in the middle was an absolute mouthful. But on Larsson himself, we've already got the dreams. Don't kid yourself on. Watching this video, you're already picturing the new Larsson, Larsson Jr. if you will, wearing the green and white hoops, number 7 on his back, scoring a delightful chip against Rangers. You're imagining it. Let's not beat around the bush. But before we get on to just imagining the possible future that's in front of us, let's actually have a look at Jordan Larsson and take the whole Larsson surname, King of Kings thing out of the question and actually look at whether he would be good enough to play for Celtic. Right, Jordan Larsson started his career, his youth career that is, actually in Barcelona, playing in their fabled La Masia Academy between 2004 and 2006 when his dad was busy winning La Ligas and Champions Leagues and just that kind of stuff. He then started his full professional career with Högaborgs in Sweden, when he actually in one game played alongside his dad, who was 41 at the time. The excuse given there was that there was a bit of an injury crisis at the club and they had to start the two Larssons up top. Jordan then ended up at Helsingborgs, where he had a kind of okay time. His first real club, the biggest club in the region where he hails from, and obviously a club where his dad started and finished his career as well. And as he continued to follow in his father's footsteps 3 or so decades later, he then moved to the Eredivisie, while Henrik Sr. signed for Feyenoord. Jordan signed for NEC Nijmegen, where he scored 4 goals in 21 games. He signed for Swedish side IFK Norrköping, where he scored 1 goal in his first season, but he then scored 11 and 16 in half a season the next year. That attracted the Russian giant Spartak Moscow, who paid around about £3.5 million for him in 2019. He scored 10 goals in his first full season in Moscow, which I suppose is okay. And this season he scored 8 in 19 league games so far. I was looking in the Russian scoring charts. He's actually joint 4th top scorer. And one of the most interesting things about Jordan Larsson's season so far is that he's started every single league match for Spartak Moscow so far. So he's starting for them. He's scoring goals for them. He's only 23, and on top of that, he's played for the Swedish national team as well. He actually has already scored for them. He scored for them earlier this year. It wasn't a friendly. It was in Qatar, and it was against Moldova. I don't know why Sweden are playing Moldova in Qatar in a friendly for a start. But anyway, it proved to be a massive night for Jordan Larsson as he scored his first goal for his country. So we've got a player here who's playing for one of the top teams in Russia. He's one of the top scorers in Russia. He's a regular for them. He plays now and again for Sweden. I'm not going to pretend that he's a regular for the Swedish national team, but that's a top, maybe second tier national team, and he's playing a fair bit for them. He's already scored for them, and he's young, and he's got the reputation of his father. Right, this is quite a tough one to weigh up for a few reasons. The main one is that I didn't know this before doing the research today, but apparently Russian transfer fees are hidden a lot of the time. You get that old undisclosed thing next to them. I certainly found that out while searching. However, transfermarkt.co.uk have quite good sources, I think, with regards to transfer fees, and I've been looking at the record amounts that Spartak Moscow have ever brought in, and just to give us a wee idea on how much they would look to get in for Jordan Larsson if he was to move on, which he will at some stage. Now, the main player that I looked at, the record fee they've ever brought in was around £18 million for a player called Quincy Promes. He now plays for Ajax, but the deal was Spartak Moscow to Sevilla, and it was £18 million that the Spanish club paid Spartak for that. Another player we'll know well from a few years ago, Emmanuel Emenike, he moved for around about £10 million in 2013 to Fenerbahce from Spartak Moscow. And perhaps the greatest indication on how much a player like Larsson would cost Celtic if we were to buy him is a player, Zé Luís, who moved in 2019 from Spartak Moscow to Porto for £8 million. So that's the kind of ballpark we're talking. It seems like a lot of money on the face of things, but is it really? Celtic have paid £9 million for Odsonne Edouard. We've paid £7 million for Christopher Julian. Transfer fees are only going upwards, and when you consider that Edouard, maybe Christopher Ayer, maybe Ncham, maybe a few others will leave in the summer, the money should be there at some stage for us to go and spend a fair chunk on a player like Larsson. And on top of all of that, it seems like he is genuinely keen to play for Celtic. Now, you may question why he would be keen to play for Celtic, because he is a player who's on the up. He may probably see his future level higher than the Scottish League, but there is an emotional attachment there with Jordan Larsson. Clearly, reading from that interview, is the quote that got me most was the fact he said he wanted to be ready to play for Celtic. He wouldn't just move for the sake of it. He'd want to keep improving. I would argue that his scoring record over the last few years, the last 3 years, first in Sweden and then the last couple of seasons in Russia, suggests that he would score goals for fun if he moved to Celtic, just like his old man. Right, that's my best go at some sort of a reasoned debate, trying to bring numbers into it, trying to just put out of my mind the fact that Jordan Larsson is Henrik's son and all that kind of stuff. But come on, we're all getting excited here, aren't we? This is a guy who's scoring goals for fun In Russia, he has a good scoring record in a league that's better than the Scottish game. I would certainly argue. I don't think that's really up for debate. He's a player I would sign if his surname wasn't Larsson and he wasn't the son of Henrik. And that's me being honest, because he's young, he can improve. He's on the verge of the Swedish national team. But then you add in the whole factor of having Larsson back at the club, albeit his son. Having Larsson's 7, imagine the shirt sales there. Yes, there would be extra pressure on him to succeed because of what his dad did. He would probably be compared to his dad in every single way, even more so than we've had with the likes of Edouard and Dembele over the last couple of years. But there's also the positive that he would be a Celtic icon before even kicking a ball for the club. He'd be a cult hero. The fans would absolutely love him before even seeing him play, and that would probably give him extra time if things weren't going his way at the start. I actually think this will happen in the future because there's a will from him, clearly, to make it happen. And surely at some stage someone at Celtic will look at that like I am and go, that's a deal we want to make happen. The only stumbling block would be if he gets too good and he becomes out of a price range like John McGinn is nowadays, someone of that ilk, that he moves to like a top European league, which, let's face it, he's not a million miles away from doing if he keeps up his scoring run. Given who his dad is as well, that'll help. He could then quickly become a 15, 20, 25 million pound player, and then he's just out of our price range. So that's why I think we need to do it in the next couple of years. You know, a Frenchman is going to be leaving the club in the summer. I would assume this will be Odsonne Edouard's last year at the club. Even if Jordan Larsson is going to cost the same as Edouard at £9 million, yes, it's a gamble, but God, when we throw away millions of pounds on loan deals that haven't worked this season, and Shveds and Vakun Bios and players like that, then you just wonder whether it'd be worth doing. The fans would certainly love it. Jordan Larsson, it's clear, would love it, and he looks like a really talented player. So let's make it happen, Celtic. That's it for today.